You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates. Each year, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod offers, across congregations, across organizations, offer opportunities for youth and adults to serve in what we call LCMS Servant Events. Today, we go to Lutheran Valley Retreat, Woodland Park, Colorado. Steve Johnson is executive director there, and to learn about their participation in LCMS Servant Events and ways that you can join in serving too. Steve, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here, Andy.
Steve, tell us about the servant events that you've hosted at Lutheran Valley Retreat.
Yeah, we do about 4 a summer, 4 or 5. One of them is just one, like we just got finished up with one, actually. Today, 2 groups left, and it was just, one of the servant events is getting things ready at LVR, getting us ready for our summer season. Then we'll do another one in June. This next one in June is kind of focusing on just we're going to be building trails this year, and then our probably biggest one is the one where we partner with Bethesda Ministries, and we kind of run camp for folks with special needs, and that one's pretty powerful. And then we do one at the end of summer, so to kind of say, oh, summer's over, and we need help kind of closing camp up. So
wrapping up things for the season, putting away equipment, and getting camp ready for the winter.
Yeah.
What are some stories that have really stood out in those experiences? You really described several different types of servant events. There are several different categories. Right. What are some stories that have stood out for you in those various servant events at Lutheran Valley Retreat?
The main one is, I'll never forget this one. The first time, actually, is from the first time we did Bethesda, with our partnership with Bethesda. Then it was known as Good Shepherd Lutheran Ministries. And Christopher was a paraplegic who came to us and got to run camp, and he got to be a normal camper for a week, and we got him on a horse, and his mom got to go to camp with him, and so being on a horse, his mom just looks around and says, "My son is riding a horse," something she never thought would happen, and at that point in time, all the servants who were there heard that, and all of a sudden it was like everything, all this, it's hard to run camp for these folks at LVR, because LVR wasn't built that way, and we make it happen, and then just to have that experience with Christopher is amazing. So that's the main story. The rest of it is, stories of, like this year, a group from St. John's is coming back, and the kids had a choice. They're like, well, do you want to do a National Youth Gathering this year or do another servant event? And they chose to do another servant event this year because the impact that the youth leader and the kids saw of a servant event week, and the leader of that week is just, we're all in on servant events. He sees the impact throughout the year. His kids' involvement of youth programs are improving. Their attitude towards service and bringing service home is huge. And so those are the 2 main stories. And then there's so many others. Pretty awesome.
So how do those, you mentioned St. John's, how do those youth serve with you in a servant event?
Yeah, so they're coming up next week, actually, Sunday, and this is their second year coming back to LVR. And what they're going to be doing, actually we're building a new trail system right now. And just the work and the Bible study and then the experiences also, it's just putting the needs of others above and beyond their own is probably the summary. And that has a lasting impact. The Holy Spirit works in that arena. And getting kids out of their comfort zone. We don't have cell phone coverage out here for LVR, and that's a pretty big bonus, actually. And then just getting away, unplugging so we can plug back into the Holy Spirit is pretty awesome.
So what does a typical day look like on a servant event with Lutheran Valley Retreat?
Yeah, you know what? We wake up, eat breakfast, and that's always important.
You're going to need it.
Got to get that breakfast in the morning. And then... we do like a little morning devotion, and then basically it's off to work. They work from 9 to lunch, and then after lunch we work from, we always take a nap time after lunch. Also, probably the most important time of the day is that time to rest. And then we work from, about 1:15 until 4, and then we do our Bible study. Then after dinner, we do our Bible study time from 4 o'clock until dinner, which is at 5:30, and then after that, we do evening activities, which could be hiking, cedar mountain, climb, rappelling, high rope scores, zip line, stuff like that. So keep them pretty busy. And Thursday is a recreation day where usually we just say, here's the things you can do on your own. Like a lot of groups choose to go rafting over in Buena Vista. Some groups choose to stay here. Some groups have, taken the shuttles up Pikes Peak, and some have gone down to Air Force Academy and just enjoyed the area a little bit.
You mentioned earlier that some of the youth have just learned and grown so much while participating in a servant event that that it's changed their perspective on serving back in their own communities as well. Do you have any comments from the youth or any stories from them or their parents or their youth leaders as to how they've really seen that difference?
Yeah, actually, one main story. I wish I had a lot of stories. There's a few that come back to us. A lot of times they come to us through the youth leaders. But one story was, so these students basically got home at the end of summer, their summer break, and basically dedicated themselves to volunteering weekly at the food kitchen. And they decided that, just service was important. Serving others was even, a huge calling for them. And they get out there and, they're handing out food baskets. They're helping the people organize it. And what the food kitchen they do is actually more of a community-wide. It's once a month. I say weekly because, it's anyway. And one of them, the once-a-month deal is basically people will just drive in and they get to meet folks and they get to hand them food. Just freely give type ministries, and it's pretty awesome. That's one example. The other one is just simply hanging out. Going to nursing homes, people who don't have people coming around, and just hanging out with people. That's something we've done on sometimes a recreation day is set up, going over to Cripple Creek and hanging out with the Cripple Creek Retirement and Rehabilitation Center there, folks who don't have anyone. And that takes an understanding the impact of just you can spend time and put a little light in someone's life just by listening and talking and singing, praying, whatever it may be. So we're seeing those things happen at home. The biggest thing we're seeing, the impact is increased involvement in worship, increased involvement in youth ministry, all across the servant event. It goes beyond. And whereas you may have had a kid on the fringe before, but being involved with the servant event can help getting a kid involved larger in the year. And they're going to come more. They're going to be invested because it is putting other people's needs above and beyond their own, which is pretty awesome.
So certainly the youth students are learning and growing as they're serving side by side with their fellow youth and with youth leaders, and so there are great benefits there. What about those who have been recipients of their service, whether it's there at camp or the special needs campers, or those whoever they're serving through the servant events? Tell us where some of those impacts have been made.
Yeah, I'll start first with Bethesda. The Bethesda folks are so excited about coming to camp every year. And yeah, it's the activities, but it's also because really the students are pouring into them. It is a life-changing deal for these special needs adults. We have one gentleman who he comes back every year. He's not with Bethesda. The crazy thing is he's not with Bethesda anymore. His family has taken him on, but they come every year for a work weekend because the impact that the students had on this man's life. He says, "I want to come to camp. I want to know more about God. I want to connect with Jesus here at camp." And he comes back for our work weekend, believe it or not. And he does a little bit of work, and then he really just hangs out by the horses. But it's phenomenal to see that one experience that he had changed his life forever. And that's just the Bethesda side. The communities we reach out to Turkey Rock Ranch Estates, which is one of the communities really close to us, which is not much close to us, by the way. But we reach out to them and help them with fire mitigation. And just that peace of mind, people who can't do it on their own. What the impact there is they couldn't have done it. And basically to understand that this work, the students came in and helped protect their homes from future forest fires, realize it gives them a comfort, it gives them a peace, and then also lets them know that, hey, these kids that are serving, man, that gives them a lot of hope for future generations. And you can see the joy in their face, knowing that their home is protected, but also that these, they have hope for future generations. Because they bash the future generations so much in the media, and we're just sitting there going, no, these kids are on fire for the Lord. These kids are ready to serve. And these kids are going to change our church and our nation for Christ, I believe. We just got to encourage them.
So these young people have opportunities every summer to participate in servant events, and Lutheran Valley Retreat is one of the many places that LCMS servant events are happening across the country, and these are all organized by organizations and volunteers to make these opportunities available and to serve in whether through acts of mercy or whatever ways that they're given to serve. The Lutheran Valley Retreat, I think you mentioned before we came into the program, has been doing these for nearly 30 years. Is that right?
Yeah, and actually, I believe, now somebody's going to fact check somewhere in Radio Land, but I believe the first LCMS servant event was actually done at Lutheran Valley Retreat in the 80s.
So a long history there of servant events. How do you get involved, for the young adult listening or the youth listening right now, or maybe it's a youth leader in a congregation listening? How do they get involved in servant events, and what's it like as a leader to bring a group to a servant event? We have just about a minute and a half. Yeah,
so how you get involved is on the LCMS website, there's a link to servant events, and they'll have a whole listing there. And it's really awesome the amount of servant events that are happening every year, even in a youth gathering year, how many servant events are happening throughout the nation. And a lot of places really focus on communities. LVR, we're working on more leadership development for next year for 2020 of students. We want to see student leaders grow out of this experience. And I know a lot of other places are already doing that, serving communities, building decks for people who can't, ramps for folks who can't use stairs anymore. And it's lcms.org. The other thing with youth leaders is from there, a lot of groups have different ways of doing things. At LVR, we do a contract, and we got a lot of forms. Colorado State requires a ton of forms, child care stuff, and we kind of work with you on that. And then we're going to, and then a lot of places, other places will, they'll have the whole registration process as well. It's a little different with each site, so be patient. But definitely worth it. As far as students listening, if you want your life changed, be a part of it. Jesus Christ takes a hold of you during these events, and the Holy Spirit works in your heart. And if that's something you know is what God's calling you to, man, tell your youth leader, get them involved for sure. As you pointed out before, they're daily Bible studies that are a key part of these LCMS servant events, and that's great to have that time in the Word, to be built up in the Word, to be equipped to serve. Absolutely. You can find out more at servantevents.lcms.org. That's servantevents.lcms.org is the website to find out more about 2019 LCMS servant events. There are still spots available across the country, so you can find out more. servantevents.lcms.org. Our guest today, Steve Johnson, Executive Director of Lutheran Valley Retreat. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour. Thanks for having me, Andy. Have a great day, man.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.